Hey, what's up, guys? Young Bucks, Old Goats. Thank you for joining me. We're here with episode 43, and today I want to do a review of the Bruce Lee 30 for 30, which is called Be Like Water. I know I'm a little late to the party with this one. It came out about June, but I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee, and I want to go ahead and tackle this one and just give you a little feedback on what I thought about the documentary and a couple other tidbits. Actually, just a couple days ago, July 20th, or who knows how long ago when you watch this, but as of filming a couple days ago, it'd be 47 years since Bruce Lee died. And here we are talking about him today still. So, a couple things that jumped out to me. I like signs of the time kind of things that pop out to me. One was letters. Like, when's the last time you wrote a letter? Or when's the last time you got a letter? Or when's the next time somebody's going to ask or send you or you're going to write one? There was a lot of letters in the movie. They kept talking about, so and so wrote a letter. Nowadays, we send a text, an email maybe for business. But a letter is so much more personal, right? Because you have to sit down and think and put the pen to paper. It's an art, a lost art. One of the characters brought up briefly in the documentary is Ip Man. If you haven't seen the Ip Man movies, I recommend them. Donnie Yen, who also plays Chirrut in Star Wars, he plays Ip Man, and he's one of the first guys that taught Bruce Lee the Wing Chun, I think is the style. And that guy's a great martial artist in his own right. Probably the closest thing we have to like a Bruce Lee nowadays. He's getting up there now too. And I've always been a fan of Bruce, but I didn't realize he was such a child star in Hong Kong. That's touched upon during the documentary. I don't know if they talked about it in the documentary or not, but I will because I'm a Tarantino fan, and his portrayal in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was very controversial for some people because they thought it's disrespectful the way he was portrayed. He gets into a fight with, spoiler alert, I guess is out at this time. He gets into a fight with Brad Pitt's character Cliff Booth, and he's portrayed as very braggadocious and but again, I'll give Tarantino the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't doing a documentary. He was doing, a movie set like in an alternate universe, so to speak. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Speaking of Hollywood, that's another thing that jumped out to me in the documentary. Amazing how racist Hollywood was with the treatment of Asian people. They showed some scenes from a movie that I do enjoy, which is Breakfast at Tiffany's. They show some of the scenes there of how they're portrayed, very disrespectful. They even cast white people to play them, to play Asians. So that was crazy, to sort of. I do watch old movies from time to time, but I'm not as well versed as I am on, like, say, 90s movies. So it was kind of eye popping to see, the way some of them were portrayed. They showed some of the 2-finger push-ups, the 2-inch punch. Those are some of the things that made Bruce famous. But before he got famous, one of the things that really kind of shaped him and defined who he was when he was getting in trouble in China. His dad sent him over at age 18 with like $100 in his pocket, and he just kind of had to find his way. And it was, what year was that? I'm not sure, but I know when he was coming up, it was in the climate of the 60s, which was just on fire. I'd like to do a whole episode on that one day, maybe even a few, because you have the civil rights movements going on during that time, Vietnam Wars going on during that time, JFK gets assassinated, we're freaking going to the moon, the summer of love. It's just all these assassinations and crazy things are going on. So, they also had to deal with that racism, which I don't think it was that publicized during that time. Obviously that's changed a lot for the better, luckily. But I don't remember hearing about that. Well, I wasn't around at the time either, but I don't remember hearing of it that much. That's what I'm trying to say. Even later. His first big break, obviously, to U.S. audiences was the Green Hornet, and he was probably severely, for his talents, underused. And they did talk about the pay too, which was a big difference between him and what Van Williams, the guy who played the Green Hornet. The amount of difference in money they made was huge. If you've never seen the Green Hornet and you want to just watch one episode to get the taste, I enjoy the one where they cross over with Batman and Robin. Really fun episode. He did teach some classes. Some of his more famous students were Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who did appear in a movie with him, Steve McQueen. I learned this, which was surprising. Roman Polanski, we don't like him. Sharon Tate, people who are portrayed also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they were students of his, so maybe that's why Tarantino did the tie-in of having Bruce in the movie. And a lot of big actors started off in movies with him, like Chuck Norris, and one more who I'm saving for the trivia question for today, which I'll tell you about in the end. He was also, I didn't know this, was either it was made for him or it was considered, or he was considered for the role in the TV show Kung Fu, who, of course, eventually that went to David Carradine. So that was something new that I learned. And he didn't see himself as Chinese or American. He just saw himself as a human. And it's odd that he was probably never fully accepted during his time, in either culture, U.S. or China. But the dude is now and forever an icon in both and around the world, really. I mean, you're talking 1973. Dude died 47 years ago, and here we are doing documentaries about him on ESPN, and he'll never be forgotten. Of course, Enter the Dragon, that's his masterpiece. If you're gonna, I would say, if you're gonna watch one martial arts movie, watch Enter the Dragon. If you're gonna watch one Bruce Lee movie, watch Enter the Dragon. If you haven't seen Enter the Dragon, you're probably not watching this podcast anyways, but watch Enter the Dragon. I want to watch it right now, but I read that it's not for little kids, so I'm going to save it for a little bit to watch with my kids, because it's a fun movie. Of course, then, we have his mysterious death. It happens while he's having meetings to film a movie called Game of Death, which is, what a coincidence. He had headaches. It had happened to him a few months before. He took some painkillers, and he ended up with a swollen brain. They said it swelled to 13% of its size, of its normal size, and he had an allergic reaction to something they gave him to take for pain. So another thing that I didn't know, and I don't think they touch on this in the doc, but I learned later, was he had his sweat glands removed for aesthetic purposes. Really, it was something, I guess he thought it looked bad on camera to be sweating, so he had his sweat glands removed. I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but it's interesting to note. It also led. They found marijuana in his system, which at the time they kind of made. He did use marijuana, but that's been debunked. There was some in his system, but that doesn't completely debunk that would have anything to do with his death. But regardless, it led to a bunch of conspiracies, Chinese mafia and a bunch of others. So years later, his son is coming into his own and becoming a star in his own, Brandon Lee, with The Crow, and he also tragically passes away. I don't want to mess up the details, so I'm gonna just pull it up here to read it. When he was filming The Crow, he's supposed to be shot and killed. In the scene, they're supposed to use a gun with. In the previous scene, the gun had been used with dummy cartridges with no powder or primer. But they had used live rounds that they removed the powder and then left the primer. At some point, the revolver was discharged with these improperly deactivated cartridges in the chamber, which set off the primer with enough force to drive the bullet partially into the barrel, where it became stuck, something known as squib load. So later, when they shot that thing again in another scene, the cartridges were exchanged with blank rounds, which feature a live powder charge and primer but no bullet, so it allows it to be fired without the risk of an actual projectile. Since the bullet from the dummy round was already trapped in the barrel, that's what caused, using the blank caused the stuck projectile to be fired, which almost with the same force as it were live, and it struck Lee in the abdomen, and that eventually led to his death, which is a damn shame. Both of them are a damn shame. Bruce Lee could still be alive today. So overall, it was an enlightening doc, and it reminds some of us who are familiar with him of his greatness, and maybe hopefully introduces him to new generations. Let me go over his filmography real quick here. And some of these had different names if you were watching them in over here or in Asia. The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Game of Death, Enter the Dragon. Then they had like some other ones. They tried to keep the Bruce Lee thing going after he passed with like little scenes of him, or he's barely in the movie. The Real Bruce Lee, Game of Death 2, but I don't even count those. The real deal is like Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, even Game of Death, to some extent. So I want to thank manofactionfigures.com, sponsor of the show. Got some knickknacks here. We do have some Bruce Lee merchandise, like I mentioned. And I'm going to give you the trivia for today. Just trying to figure out how to word this, but I think you're going to get what I'm saying. So, what famous actor had his head snapped by Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon? And this was a famous actor who was not famous at the time. He basically appears in the film long enough to have his head snapped. I'm going to have the answer to the trivia question in the description below. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. All right.